Unexpected encounter. A flash of crimson light tore across the obsidian sky of Helios Ridge as Lieutenant Mira Kovich dove behind the twisted remnants of a downed shuttle. Her breath came in ragged gasps, fogging the inside of her combat helmet, as the ground trembled beneath another orbital bombardment. The Battle of Helios had not gone according to plan. The Terran forces had been separated, communications were down, and Mira found herself alone in the crystalline wastelands of this disputed border moon. Damage assessment, she whispered, activating her suit's diagnostic system. The heads-up display flickered weakly before stabilizing, revealing a list of concerning statistics. Oxygen reserves at 68%, left leg servos damaged, 3 minor hull, breaches sealed, and what her suit euphemistically labeled as potential soft tissue damage in her right shoulder. Wonderful, Mira muttered, checking her pulse rifle's charge. Lost, outnumbered, and bleeding. Tuesday's looking great. A sudden movement among the wreckage caught her attention. 20 meters ahead, something shifted beneath a fallen communications array. Mira raised her rifle, its targeting system locking onto the disturbance. Through the swirling dust, she could make out a form, not human. Certainly not one of the autonomous combat drones the Sevarans typically deployed. This was something else. The figure was tall, with a slender frame draped in torn ceremonial armor that still glimmered with bioluminescent patterns despite being covered in dust and what appeared to be dark, viscous blood. Most striking were the elongated limbs and the crest of delicate spines rising from the back of the alien skull, unmistakable features of the Sevaran species. Protocol was clear. All Sevaran combatants were to be captured or eliminated. The EOS war had raged for 11 years, sparked by territorial disputes that had escalated into full-scale conflict. The Sevarans had proven merciless in their campaigns, deploying biological weapons that had devastated 3 Terran colony worlds. Mira's finger hovered over the trigger. One clean shot would end this encounter. Simple, efficient, by the book. Instead, she called out, "Don't move. I'm armed." The Sevaran remained motionless except for the shallow rise and fall of its chest. Mira approached cautiously, keeping her weapon trained on the alien. As she drew closer, she could see that the Sevaran was pinned beneath part of the array, a jagged piece of metal impaled through its lower torso. The alien's eyes were closed. Its skin, typically a vibrant azure, had faded to a dull gray blue. "You're in bad shape," Mira observed, kneeling beside the Sevaran while maintaining a safe distance. "Can you understand me?" The alien's eyes fluttered open, deep violet with horizontal pupils that contracted in the dim light. It made no sound, only watched Mira with an intensity that felt almost physical. "I'm going to try to help you," Mira said, not entirely sure why she was making this decision. "But if you try anything, I won't hesitate to defend myself." The Sevaran gave a slight incline of its head, a nod perhaps, or simply acknowledgement. Removing the metal fragment was difficult work. The alien's physiology was different enough from human that Mira couldn't be sure what she might damage in the process. The Sevaran remained conscious throughout, occasionally making soft clicking sounds that Mira interpreted as pain. "Almost there," she said, more to break the silence than anything else. "My field medic training didn't exactly cover Sevaran anatomy, but I'm doing my best." When the fragment finally came free, a rush of iridescent fluid, the Sevaran equivalent of blood, spilled onto the dusty ground. Mira quickly applied a universal coagulant patch from her medkit, watching as it adapted to the alien biochemistry, changing color from white to pale lavender as it sealed the wound. "That should hold," she said, helping the Sevaran to sit upright. "Can you walk?" The alien attempted to stand, only to collapse immediately. It made a series of complex sounds, clicking and whistling tones that Mira's translator couldn't process. "I'll take that as a no," she sighed. "We need shelter. This area is too exposed, and my squad will be looking for me, if they survived. Your people too, I imagine." The skies above them lit up with another barrage. Whatever was happening in orbit, it didn't bode well for anyone on the surface. Mira made a quick decision, looping the Sevaran's arm over her shoulder and helping the alien to its feet. "There's an abandoned research outpost 2 kilometers east," she explained, pointing toward a ridge of crystalline formations. If we can make it there, we might have a chance to regroup. Their progress was painfully slow. The Severan was taller than Mira by nearly half a meter, making their awkward three-legged journey all the more difficult across the treacherous terrain. Twice they had to take cover as Terran dropships thundered overhead, and once they narrowly avoided a Severan patrol drone by ducking into a shallow ravine. By the time they reached the outpost, a half-buried structure of reinforced alloys with the Terran Science Division insignia faded on its exterior, Mira's shoulder was screaming with pain and her oxygen reserves had dropped to 42%. Home sweet home, she muttered, overriding the door lock with her military credentials. The facility's emergency systems activated as they entered, bathing the interior in dim blue light. Mira helped the Severan to examination table that dominated the central laboratory, before checking the perimeter and securing the entrance. When she returned, the alien was examining the coagulant patch on its wound with long, six-fingered hands. It looked up as Mira approached, its head tilting at an inquisitive angle. "You're welcome," Mira said, removing her helmet and placing it on a nearby console. She ran a hand through her short, sweat-dampened hair. "I'm Mira, Lieutenant Mira Kovich, Terran Alliance Expeditionary Force." The Severan watched her for a moment, then raised a hand to its throat, where an intricate collar of metallic segments encircled its slender neck. It touched a sequence of patterns and the collar illuminated briefly. "I am grateful." The voice that emerged was synthesized but clear, with an unusual cadence that emphasized different syllables than a human would. "Your assistance was unexpected." "You speak our language?" Mira asked, surprised. "Translation matrix," the Severan explained, again touching the collar. "Limited, but functional." Mira nodded, retrieving a portable medical scanner from a storage locker. "I need to check your wound properly. I'm not trying to harm you." The alien inclined its head. "Proceed." As Mira worked the scanner mapping the alien's unusual physiology and suggesting appropriate treatments, she found herself wondering about the Severan. Most humans had never seen one up close. The war had been fought largely through drones, ships, and distance weapons. "Do you have a name?" she asked, applying a regenerative compound to the wound. The Severan hesitated. "You may call me Nix." "Just Nix? No rank or house name?" "It will suffice." Mira shrugged. "Fair enough, Nix. I won't pry, though I am curious what you were doing alone in that battlefield. Most Severan forces we encounter are either in squads or piloting those bioengineered war vessels." Nix's expression was difficult to read, but something in the set of those alien features suggested calculation. "I was observing a diplomatic assessment. My escort was lost in bombardment." "Diplomatic?" Mira raised an eyebrow. Interesting choice of words for the middle of a war zone. "Not all Severans desire this conflict," Nix said carefully. Before Mira could respond, the outpost's proximity alert sounded, a low, pulsing tone that indicated movement outside. She quickly checked the external sensors. A Severan patrol, 6 strong, was approaching from the north. "Your people," Mira said, retrieving her helmet and rifle. "They must be looking for you." Nix stared at the monitor, then back at Mira. "What will you do?" It was a fair question. By all rights, Mira should use Nix as a hostage or at minimum as a bargaining chip for her own safe passage. That was what regulations would dictate. Instead, she found herself calculating a different strategy. "Can you contact them? Let them know you're here?" The Severan nodded slowly. "Then do it," Mira said, making her decision. "Tell them you need medical evacuation. But give me time to leave first. This place has a maintenance tunnel that leads to the ridge. I can make it to my rendezvous point from there." Nix's violet eyes widened slightly. "You would release me? Without conditions?" Mira checked her weapon's charge, more out of habit than necessity. "I didn't drag you 2 kilometers just to use you as a bargaining chip. Besides, if what you said about diplomacy is true, Maybe you can put in a good word for me with your superiors." The alien's face transformed in what Mira realized was the Savaran equivalent of a smile, a slight parting of its lipless mouth, revealing rows of small, pearlescent teeth. "Lieutenant Mira Kovac," Nick said, the translator making the name sound strangely musical. "Your actions will not be forgotten." "Just doing what seemed right," Mira replied, heading toward the maintenance access. "Try not to get shot again, Nix. I might not be around to patch you up next time." As she disappeared into the tunnel, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter was somehow significant, that in saving this one Savaran, she had altered something fundamental. But that was probably just exhaustion and blood loss talking. By tomorrow, she'd be back with her unit, and this strange interlude would be nothing more than an unusual war story. She couldn't have been more wrong. Bridge between worlds. 3 weeks after the Battle of Helios Ridge, Lieutenant Mira Kovac stood in the gleaming atrium of Terran Alliance Headquarters Jupiter Station. The summons had arrived that morning. Priority 1, Diplomatic Corps, immediate attendance required. She tugged uncomfortably at the formal dress uniform she rarely wore, its stiff collar irritating the healing wound on her neck that she'd received during extraction from Helios. "Lieutenant Kovac," a voice called. Admiral Jackson Frost approached, his weathered face unreadable. "I trust your recovery is progressing well?" "Yes, sir," Mira replied, standing at attention. "Medical cleared me for limited duty yesterday." "Good. You'll need your strength." Frost handed her a data tablet. "You've been reassigned, effective immediately." Mira scanned the document, her confusion growing with each line. "Diplomatic liaison to the Savaran Dominion? Sir, there must be a mistake. I'm a combat specialist, not a diplomat." "No mistake, Lieutenant." Frost's expression softened slightly. "It seems you made quite an impression on someone. The Savaran Empress herself has requested you by name." "Empress?" Mira felt the floor tilt beneath her. "I don't understand. The alien you assisted on Helios Ridge, the one you described as a diplomatic observer in your report, that was Empress Nixara Vostal, sovereign ruler of the entire Savaran Dominion." Frost's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "Apparently, saving the enemy's head of state makes you uniquely qualified for interspecies relations." Mira's mind raced back to the wounded alien she'd helped, Nix, the quiet, dignified being who had watched her with those intense violet eyes. The Empress? It seemed impossible, and yet, why would she be on a battlefield, Mira asked. Intelligence suggests she was there to observe a prototype terraforming device, one that could potentially neutralize our atmospheric defenses. Her convoy was caught in our orbital bombardment. You know the rest. Frost checked his chronometer. "The Savaran diplomatic vessel docks in 40 minutes. You'll be briefed en route." "En route to where exactly?" "The Savaran capital ship, the Eternal Radiance. You'll spend 2 weeks there as part of the first official human diplomatic contingent." Frost's expression grew serious. "This could be our first real chance at peace, Lieutenant. Don't squander it." The Savaran diplomatic vessel, Twilight Messenger, was unlike any ship Mira had ever boarded, more living sculpture than machine. Its corridors curved in organic patterns illuminated by bioluminescent panels that responded to movement. The air carried a faint scent of ozone and something floral that tickled the back of her throat. Her escort, a tall Savaran named Threlvor, led her to a viewing chamber where the stars streaked by in ribbons of light. "The Empress awaits your arrival with great anticipation," Threlvor said, the translation matrix in his collar giving his words a melodic quality. "Your actions have created possibilities where none existed before." "I just did what anyone would do," Mira replied. Threlvor's head tilted in that distinctively Savaran expression of amusement. "No, they would not. That is precisely why we are here." The Eternal Radiance loomed before them, a massive construct of crystalline materials and living metal that pulsed with energy. It dwarfed every Terran vessel Mira had ever seen, including the Alliance's prized dreadnoughts. As they docked, Mira fought to control her racing heart. A reception party awaited. 6 honor guards in ceremonial armor and a slender Sevaran female whose elaborate robes shimmered with embedded light particles. The female stepped forward, touching her translation collar. "Lieutenant Mira Kovac," she said. "I am Lysita, first voice of the Imperial Court. The Radiant Empress welcomes you as Chavek, life debt bearer, an honor not bestowed upon an outsider in 7 generations." Mira bowed slightly, recalling her hasty diplomatic briefing. "I am honored by Her Radiance's welcome." "Follow," Lysita instructed, turning with a grace that made her movements seem almost liquid. They proceeded through the massive ship, passing chambers filled with strange technology and gardens where plants from distant worlds grew in carefully maintained ecosystems. Sevarans they encountered stopped to observe Mira, their expressions unreadable to human eyes but their attention unmistakable. Finally, they arrived at a vast circular chamber. The ceiling arched high above, depicting what appeared to be a star, map of Sevaran territory. At the center stood a dais surrounded by hovering crystals that emitted soft, pulsing light. And there, waiting with perfect stillness, was Nyx. Empress Nyxara Vostal of the Sevaran Dominion looked markedly different from the wounded alien Mira had rescued. Her azure skin gleamed with vitality, the crest of spines along her skull now adorned with delicate chains of precious metals. Her ceremonial garments, layers of translucent material that caught and refracted light, moved with her, as if they were extensions of her body. But those eyes, those were unmistakable. "Lieutenant Kovac," the Empress said, her voice now clear through an advanced translation system. "You returned to me under different circumstances." Mira inclined her head. "Your Radiance, I admit I'm still processing the revelation of your identity. Would you have acted differently had you known?" The question was direct, probing. "No," Mira answered without hesitation. "A life is a life." The Empress's mouth parted slightly, that same expression Mira had seen in the outpost. "And that, Lieutenant, is why you stand here now. The Sevaran Dominion has existed for 30,000 cycles. In that time we have encountered 17 spacefaring species. Only yours has shown such contradiction." "Contradiction? Your people wage war with terrible efficiency, yet demonstrate mercy at the most unexpected moments. You develop weapons of mass destruction, yet risk yourselves to save a single life." Nyxara descended from the dais, approaching Mira directly, a gesture that caused the attending Sevarans to stir with surprise. "You, Mira Kovac, embody this contradiction. A soldier who chooses healing over harm." "I'm just one person," Mira said. "I can't speak for all humanity. But you can be a beginning." The Empress extended a 6-fingered hand. "The Circle of Elders has approved my proposal. You will remain here as the first human liaison to the Dominion, helping to build understanding between our species." Mira stared at the offered hand. "And if I refuse?" "Then you return to your people, and we continue as before. But I do not believe that is what you want." Those violet eyes seemed to see through Mira's carefully maintained composure. "You questioned the conflict even before you found me. I heard it in your voice that day." It was true. Mira had watched the casualties mount, had seen colonies reduced to ash, and had found herself wondering if there could be another way. Now somehow she stood at the threshold of making that possibility real. She took the Empress's hand. "I accept your offer, Your Radiance." The next 3 days passed in a blur of introductions, ceremonies, and cultural orientations. Mira met the Circle of Elders, the ruling council that advised the Empress, was shown the ancestral archives where Sevaran history stretched back millennia, and began learning the basics of their complex language. Not all Sevarans welcomed her presence. Elder Voxthel, head of the military caste, made his opposition clear during a formal dinner. "This human cannot be trusted," he declared, his translator set to allow all present to understand. "Her kind have destroyed 3 colony worlds. They understand only force." "As do you, it seems," Mira replied evenly. "Yet here I am, unarmed, and alone among you. Perhaps trust must begin somewhere, Elder. Before Voxthel could respond, the Empress intervened. The human speaks wisdom. For too long we have judged their species by the actions of their most aggressive elements, just as they have judged us by ours. This cycle ends now. Later that evening, Nyxara summoned Mira to a private garden chamber where bioluminescent plants created a twilight atmosphere. The Empress dismissed her attendants, leaving them alone among the exotic flora. "You handled Voxthel well," Nyxara said, gesturing for Mira to join her on a bench crafted from living crystal. "He respects strength even in adversaries." "I suspect I'll face more resistance than just his," Mira observed. "Of course. Change never comes without resistance." The Empress traced a pattern in a shallow pool of water, causing ripples that illuminated with each touch. "Tomorrow you will undergo the rite of recognition. It is significant." "Another ceremony?" "More than ceremony. Through this rite you will be formally acknowledged as Chavek and granted access to knowledge typically forbidden to outsiders." Nyxara's expression grew solemn. "Some oppose this. They believe our secrets should remain ours alone." "And what do you believe?" Mira asked. The Empress entered last, her presence announced by a harmonic resonance that vibrated through the chamber. She wore her full regalia, including the crown of ascension, a floating diadem of crystalline components that orbited her head like a constellation of tiny stars. "We gather under the eternal witness of the cosmos," Nyxara began, her voice amplified not by technology, but by the acoustic design of the chamber. "Today, we recognize Lieutenant Mira Kovac of the Terran Alliance as Chavek, one to whom a life debt is owed." She approached Mira, carrying a small object that glowed with inner light. "This is the Shard of Remembrance. It contains our history, our knowledge, and now, the memory of the moment our paths crossed. Take it, and you will forever be linked to the Severan people." Mira accepted the shard with steady hands. It was warm to the touch, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. As her fingers closed around it, she felt a momentary sensation of connection, as if countless presences brushed against her consciousness like a gentle wave. "With this offering," the Empress continued, "we extend not only recognition but invitation. Lieutenant Kovac will serve as the first human liaison to the Severan Dominion, building a bridge between our worlds that may one day lead to peace." A ripple of murmurs passed through the assembly, some approving, others clearly discontent. Elder Voxthel stepped forward, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the starlight. "The military caste acknowledges this bond," he said, though his tone suggested reluctance. "But we will watch closely, human. Prove worthy of the Empress's trust." "I intend to, Elder," Mira replied, holding his gaze. When the ceremony concluded, Mira found herself on an observation deck overlooking the vast expanse of space. Before her stretched the stars, the same stars that had witnessed countless battles between her people and the Sevarans. Now, perhaps, they would witness something different. She felt a presence behind her and turned to find Nyxara approaching, now dressed in simpler attire. "Your thoughts seem distant," the Empress observed. "I was thinking about chance," Mira said. "If I hadn't found you that day, if I'd made a different choice." "The universe unfolds as it must," Nyxara replied. "What matters is that when presented with a choice between mercy and indifference, you chose mercy." Mira smiled faintly. "A small act. From small acts, great changes grow." The Empress moved to stand beside her, both of them gazing out at the stars. "We have much work ahead, Mira Kovac. Our peoples have centuries of mistrust to overcome." "Then we'd better get started," Mira said, the shard of remembrance warm against her palm, a physical reminder of the bond between them, and the hope it represented for two worlds that had known only war. As they stood together, human and Sevaran, soldier and Empress, the stars continued their eternal dance, silent witnesses to this unexpected beginning, this bridge between worlds built on a single act of mercy amid the chaos of war.